Good evening, everyone. The time has just gone 7:45. We're going to start live at 8 o'clock, but until then, we're going to have a chat with some of the people that we're going to be meeting a little later on in tonight's broadcast. And as my camera turns on, which takes a little bit of time, who knows what the latest version of Zoom is actually doing. Welcome, Dr. Mark Kadish. Mark, nice to see you. Let's unmute you. Mark, let's unmute you.
I managed, Howie. You can hear me now?
Who knew you were that technical, Mark?
I'm actually useless, but you know, I've rushed home from work and got my children to set it up for me. So here I am. Privileged to be on your show, Howie.
Well, nice to see you. I haven't seen you in person in a few years, actually. So
absolutely.
So before we talk to some of our guests who are coming on later, tell us what you're seeing in your practice at the moment. What does COVID look like?
Well, you know, things the last 7 or 8 weeks have been significantly improved from a COVID perspective, which is reassuring and nice from our perspective. We're still dealing with a number of sick patients in hospitals, which, you know, they're from the actual pandemic itself. But the numbers are okay. They're relatively acceptable at the moment. You know, we're not quite sure what's going to happen. I mean, is it the third wave about to hit us? Is it going to be delayed a little bit? Some people are even hoping that the so-called population immunity may prevent a third wave. But, you know, it's been a very trying and testing time being in practice at the moment.
I bet you can't wait for a holiday.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get to Israel, never mind a holiday.
Well, you know, I think the Israelis on this broadcast are going to be saying, what on earth are these people talking about? Isn't COVID finished? So Ohad, let's start with you. Have you had all your vaccinations?
Oh, I wasn't surprised about the COVID thing. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised about you saying that you can't wait to come to Israel. It's like, let's switch. Let's come to Israel and I'll go to South Africa because I can't wait to get out of here.
Ohad, have you been to South Africa before?
I've never been to South Africa. It's a dream, hopefully one day.
Okay, well, I think you should be talking to Mark because, Mark, how many delegations from Brothers for Life have been to South Africa over the last few years?
I'm not sure. They've been to Johannesburg, I think about 10 delegations now. We have been, as a family, not involved at the whole time. It took us a couple of years to pluck up the courage to become a host family. We were, you know, we sat on the periphery for a few years and then got convinced that it was a good thing. And we've never looked back, as personally and as a family. And I see Yaron thinking very hard in the corner there. I mean, he's been here and Moti's been here, so maybe Ohad will be able to get here quite soon.
We hope so.
I was supposed to be part of the 2019 delegation to Johannesburg. Cruelly enough.
Well, we're not going anywhere. Well, at this point in time, we're actually not going anywhere. They won't let us in anywhere. But Moti, can I presume that you're fully vaccinated as well?
So actually, funny enough, I had COVID already. It wasn't fun. I don't advise it for anybody. And because of that, I don't need to get vaccinated just yet. And my wife is a little scared. She said, let's wait a little bit before we get vaccinated. But because I already had COVID, I said, fine, it's okay. But when the time comes, we will.
So explain to me where you are that it looks so cold that you're wearing, looks like 3 jerseys.
Okay, I'm wearing a polo shirt and a light sweater because right now I'm actually in the Beit Achim, which is the center of the brothers. And I'm here. I decided it would be easier to do the Zoom call from here than to go home. And afterwards, I'm going to go home to my lovely wife. And it's a little chilly in here because the AC is still on and I'm here all alone. So it gets a little cold.
we must add, Moti, your new lovely wife.
My new lovely
Moti's
wife.
only recently married, Mazal Tov, and we get to share in all our Achim's simchas too. So hope things are good, Moti.
I was going to ask, is she a new wife or is she newly lovely?
She's a new wife, but she's always been lovely.
Okay, that's great. Yaron, where do you join us from?
I'm joining you from home, from my home. Finally, I got back home after I finished to work in the city of David. And on my way home, I stopped in a high school. I was giving a lecture to a couple of youth before joining the army. Oh, I can see Rabbi Chaim.
Rabbi Chaim has thank you. Welcome. Lovely to see you. But Yaron, now many people watching may never have been to the city of David before. Explain to us, that's different to David's Citadel. People will know David's Citadel at the entrance at the Jaffa Gate. But the city of David is in fact kind of round the corner to the right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, it's out. We call it the Ashpot Gate. This is the real Jerusalem.
Guys, I'll be right back. Right back.
This is the old Jerusalem. When you're reading about the Jerusalem in the Bible, you're meaning to the city of David, where it is located right now, and not where you usually going inside what we call the old city. So the city of David that belonged to David and King Shlomo. This is where I'm working, and we have a lot of archaeological work there. 1 million people that coming to visit every year, and a lot of citizens that living in this area. And this is a terrific place. Many people even Christian find their story in the city of David. So absolutely, so actually this is a very challenging work to be a manager of this place.
So of course there's a South African connection to the city of David, in that much of the archaeological work, the original archaeological work, was funded by the Kaplan family.
I didn't know that.
And you can wander through and see the underwater springs, which when last I was there, were told that when they arrived in Jerusalem to capture Jerusalem, about what, 2,900 years ago, that's how they captured the city, through going through the springs under the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
And an amazing place. So Rabbi Chaim Levine, we welcome you to this. Where are you joining us from? It's nice and light and bright outside.
It's sunny in Seattle. I live in Seattle, which is the northwest corner of the U.S. At the edge of the Gullets.
The only thing we know about Seattle is that it's supposedly always raining.
That's always raining. Look behind me. It's always raining.
And in fact, much of this was your brainchild. You're going to be telling us about that a little later, but explain.
Yeah, I mean, you tell me, are we live, guys? Are we?
Yes, we're live. We have on Zoom alone about 500 people watching us, more on YouTube, more on Facebook.
Hi, 500 people. Shalom Aleichem, everybody.
No, we're expecting a few thousand people who will watch us this evening. We start at 8 o'clock, but we always have an informal chat as people come into the room. And of course, given that many of these people are Jewish, they are genetically programmed to be late for everything.
Yes.
I'm sure if you're a synagogue rabbi, you probably know that. Your challenge tonight, like every rabbi, is to try to keep people awake when you talk.
No, I don't want to do that, because I'm a sleeping aid. That's what I call myself, a human sleep. Hey, Mark, great to see you. Did you want me to talk about how BFL started? Yeah, you too,
no,
Mark.
you're going to tell us that about just after 8 o'clock. You're one of our first speakers, but like, what's your connection? Give us the 30-second version, and you'll tell us in more detail when we come to you just after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, of course. My connection is the Second Lebanon War in 2006. This is when this all started, and Hashem. You know how you go. There's moments that change your life, and that was one of them for me. And I was in the Rambam hospital where all the soldiers were injured, and had no idea that this is what was going to come out of it. But thank God that it did. But so I saw. I'll talk about more about this. Kind of no connection can ever come close between two people who've been through war and trauma and come back alive, and that's what I saw. Is how they were healing each other after being so close to death. That's how this started. That's my connection.
Okay. Well, as people walk into...
May I just add something, Rabbi?
Of course.
Your humility is going to come out tonight. How he's the most humble individual you'll meet, who has, together with Gilly and has created an organization which is absolutely phenomenal, certainly one of a kind. And Rabbi, it's an absolute privilege to have you on the South African screen.
It's really an honor. I'm so excited to be here, and it's heavy too because this is such an important day for every Israeli, because there's not a family in Israel who hasn't been touched by loss in protecting our country.
So I see someone is sharing their screen at the moment, and I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. And
that was so nice of you, the way you just did that. Why don't you just say, be Israeli?
You know something we did a few days ago. We did a webinar on the South African vaccine rollout, which is not very good because we've only vaccinated 290,000 people in this country out of 57 million so far.
Wow.
But we'll get there. We're just slow starters. But we also invited onto the program someone from the Maccabi Medical Aid in Tel Aviv. And he was talking about the British variant and the British mutation. And I said to him in our pre-interview, I said, what do you mean the British mutation? He says, no. The Israelis for the first time ever behaved like they were British. No one pushed in line. No one tried to get in their vaccination before they should have. And so within the medical aid, they called that the British mutation. For the first time ever, the Israelis behaved like they were British.
Hopefully that's one and done. That'll never happen again. They'll be back.
It will never. But that's why I was being so polite. I'm still affected. I don't have the Israeli bits in me, but I'm still affected by the British mutation here. So, ladies and gentlemen, while you come into the room, please tell us where in the world you are. We'd love to actually know where you're watching from. If you're watching from Seattle in particular, we'd love you to say hello to Rabbi Chaim Levine. Have you got any South Africans? Do you have a congregation in Seattle, right?
We have a great South African group here. They're small, but they're terrific people wherever they go. As you know, South Africans are leaders in any community, whether it be Toronto or San Diego or anywhere they go, Australia, they get really involved in the community. So we have a great group. Love them.
So Mark,
no bolt-on though. There's no bolt-on in the whole.
No bolt-on. Well, you'll have to come get some bolt-on. So of course, this week we have two things that we commemorate. One is Yom Hazikaron, which we'll talk about in a second, and the second thing that we commemorate is the 73rd Independence Day of Israel. So, Ochad, tell us, how will you be spending Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israeli Independence Day?
Oh, we're going to have a big barbecue. I invited some friends over from Brothers for Life with their wives and kids to my parents' backyard, actually. And we're going to eat and drink a lot of beers together.
And Moti, yourself?
So honestly, me and my wife, it's our first year married. So we're just going to take the time to relax, have a barbecue, just the two of us with some family members, and just really take the time to connect, which is very exciting.
Amazing. Yaron, you?
So yes, there is one thing that we learned from the diaspora, from the people aboard, that to make a good barbecue on the Independence Day, that we're going to do all of the family right here. I hope it will be as good as we had in Johannesburg when I was there. I think it's the best barbecue I ever had.
We'll give you a braai lesson afterwards. But Mark, I don't know if you're tuning in on Wednesday night, but Lior Suchard is performing for the South African Jewish community, one of probably the greatest mentalists in the world. And he's going to be doing a show for everyone 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. I hope you tuning in, Mark.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Looking forward to it, Howie.
Chaim, how's Yom Ha'atzmaut celebrated in Seattle?
We've got a great Israeli contingent here. And so the synagogues open up. We have a little falafel. We make some noise, but it's not like being in Israel, Howard. I got to be honest with you.
My last Yom Ha'atzmaut in Israel, everyone wandered around with shaving foam and hit each other on the head with hammers that went squeak. I don't know how that became a way to celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut. That's a fascinating way to celebrate.
But you'll see the entire country draped in blue and white in Israel. The entire country is draped in blue and white. Every car, every home. It's so inspiring. It's so exciting to see it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter your political views, your religious affiliation. You're just draped in blue and white, and there's nothing like it. It's not like that here, you know. We don't blue and white in America.
You know, you have some blue, white, and red.
Yes, exactly.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the time has just gone 8 p.m. A huge welcome to all of you and everyone joining us from around the world. Of course, this week marks two significant dates. The one is Yom Hazikaron, the moment that Israelis and Jews around the world take a moment and they reflect back on those who have lost in defense of the state of Israel and in defense of the Jewish people. And as soon as the sirens wail and that moment is finished, we go in and celebrate the 73rd anniversary of Israel's independence. And what a remarkable 73 years it has been, from really a poor country in the middle of the desert to making that desert bloom, to becoming a high-tech hub around the world, to become an international innovation super powerhouse. And that is part of the great celebrations that we'll be celebrating this week. And very importantly, don't forget that we as a community in South Africa will all be celebrating together online with Leo Suchard, probably the most famous mentalist in the world, as he performs for the South African Jewish community in celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut on Wednesday evening. Now, many people, I don't know if any of you are too young to remember the first great mentalist and spoon-bending person who was also an Israeli. Mark, you must surely remember Uri Geller.
Sure, absolutely.
And I remember as a little kid, Uri Geller coming to South Africa, being in the Colosseum Theatre as he took a spoon and he went like this, and the spoon elongated and snapped right in the middle. And I've been obsessed with mentalists and magicians ever since that very moment. So this is the 87th webinar of lockdown. A big welcome to everyone. On control this evening is Danny Kadar. Danny, turn on your camera and wave at everyone, please. How's it, Danny?
Hello, everyone.
Nice to see you. What day of the Omer was it that your beard is now this long?
Howard, it's day 16 and I've still got another 17 days to go. Yes. It's gone to the stage where I just scratching and talking to myself and I'm going insane.
I thought you told us that the beard oil was working and it had stopped scratching.
Yeah, but then I look at myself in the camera and Dr. Mark Kaddish hasn't seen me for about 10 to 15 years and he's probably been horrified since what I looked like last.
You look as good as ever.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks so much.
The Botox is working, Danny. Thank you for being on controls this evening. For those of you who haven't seen this week's edition of the South African Jewish Report, an amazing, remarkable edition, please go to your local supermarket, your Pick and Pay, your Norwood Hyper, your Spar shopping center, your local garage shop. Don't forget to pick up a copy of this week's Jewish Report newspaper. The new edition will go online Wednesday evening, and the hard copy edition will go out on Thursday. Don't forget, if you can't get your hard copy of the Jewish Report, you can always go onto www.sajr.co.za and read either the entire edition, which you can download, or alternatively, each of the individual articles there. So don't forget to go join us right then. So we're going to actually kick off, and I'm going to ask everyone if they could quickly just turn off their cameras, and we're just going to go ahead and get some sort of sense and understanding about Brothers for Life, and then we're going to come back and talk to all of the people on this panel.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by one of the most incredible people I have ever met. Please welcome the world's best mentalist, Mr. Leo Suchard. Thank you for being here, Leo. Time.
What was the song you were thinking of?
Rocket Man.
Come on. Can you tell me the song?
You want me to tell you the song?
Tell me the song.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Queen! It's a great song. Ta, 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 ta.
Yeah.
Wait, no, listen to me.
Yeah.
You do the 9 and 8. Guys, your song was Bohemian Rhapsody. Let's see.
Hello everyone, Lior Suchard here, and I want to invite you all to the South African Zionist Federation live special virtual event for Yom Hazikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's going to be on Wednesday the 14th of April at 7 p.m. exactly. I promise you an unforgettable evening, and I look forward to read your mind. Just come with positive thoughts. Book now at www.sazf.org/register, and I will see you soon.
Broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find that fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move the mountains, we gonna walk it out. Move the mountains. I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. That we have each other, and for that we have each other. Oh, we will rise, we will rise, yeah, we will rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up. In spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up, high like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times.
So if I could ask Rabbi Chaim Levine to turn on your camera. Chaim, welcome. Great to have you join us from Seattle in Washington State, United States. Tell us about Brothers for Life. How did this all begin?
Thank you so much, Howard. And Ohad, I'm angry at you because you make me cry every time I watch that video. Ohad is on the panel and did the video, and it's not fair. Firstly, it's an honor to be here with Jewish Report. And I want to just say, you guys know this already. I'm talking to the South Africans. I love South African Jewry. I love your unbelievable commitment to Israel, your Zionism, your heart. I've been to Cape Town and Joburg many times, and there's just something really special about your community that I haven't found anywhere else. And so it's really an honor to be with all of you. So, Brothers for Life, let's just take that song. Let's see if I can get through this without getting emotional. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again for you. I'll rise up and I'll do it 1,000 times again for you. That's every combat soldier who served in the IDF, and I'm not kidding. And every one of the almost 1,100 one of our members, including the 3 brothers we have, who were all severely injured, will tell you the same thing. God forbid there's a terrorist. God forbid there's a war. They'll be the first. Guys, they'll be the first. When the Gaza war happened 5 years ago, 120% of the reservists came. That means even 20% who weren't called came. And that's true for every one of our soldiers. It doesn't matter what the cost is to their personal life. They will do it over 1,000 times for us. And I just want you to all remember that because there's a heavy price to pay. So Brothers for Life, I want to take you all back for a moment with me, all the way back. It seems like a long time now, to 2006. It was a beautiful summer in 2006. And then one day something terrible happened. Hezbollah came across the border and they captured 3 IDF soldiers. Many of you remember. We didn't know at the time that they had murdered them, and they took their bodies back to Israel. And at that moment, the government decided, we're going to get our boys back alive, and we are going to push the 30,000 missiles pointed at northern Israel back, miles back to the Litani River. It was a terrible war. I'm an American Jew. I never served in the I don't really even know soldiers. But the long story short was that, here in Seattle, we felt like it's very hard to read the Jerusalem Post every day. And it's terrible when there's a war and you see the faces of young boys who are no longer going to be with us, who gave their lives, and all the injured, and do nothing. And so a few of us went to Israel. We just brought a checkbook with us. But we ended up at the main hospital. For those of you who know it, the main hospital that were receiving all the injured soldiers at the time was Rambam Hospital in Haifa. And this hospital was turned into a MASH unit, which means that all the civilians were in the parking lot because it was the only place that was safe. And all the soldiers, even the soldiers between life and death, were above ground because the hospital itself was being bombed, was a target. And when we got to the hospital, we had a young soldier with us from a unit called Duv Devan. Some of you have heard of it. And he actually was there as our bodyguard because we were so scared, to be honest with you. And what happened next was a life-changing moment for me, which was, as we're in the hospital, the siren goes off. And if you've ever been in Israel during a war, you know the feeling of, when the siren goes off, you can't help it. You just panic inside, even if you're walking and you go to the bomb shelter. And all the doctors and nurses start running. And but the soldier who was with us, Gili, wasn't running anywhere because he wasn't going to leave these soldiers. They couldn't run to the shelter. They were in the hospital beds. And I saw right then that there's something really different between the connection between a combat soldier and their comrade. Something unbreakable, something beyond words. They, many times in the field, trusted each other with their lives in their hands. And so he started to go bed to bed. We all went together, hospital bed to hospital bed. and started to tell them that he what I didn't tell you was that 2 years before this war, he was trying to capture a Hamas terrorist and he had been shot through the neck. And he was paralyzed and had come back and he had survived. And it just happened to be that Hashem put him in the right place at the right time. As he said to these soldiers and their families who were on morphine, I promise you, your life is not over. I promise you, you'll be like me. And he showed them the hole in his neck. You'll be standing on your feet again one day. I promise. And I said the same thing to the parents. And so after we left the hospital, I went, his name is Gili, he's probably on this call, back to him and said, Gili, you have to go back to this hospital and you have to help these soldiers. And he was like, what do you want me to do? I'm 25 years old. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a rep. What we understood is you can do something that no one else can do. So 10 months later, like we've done in Johannesburg and in Cape Town, and in Johannesburg especially, we brought a delegation of 10 of these soldiers, 9 of them, met them in the hospital, and they were in so much pain, you guys. They were so much suffering, physically and mentally. And it was overwhelming for me because I'd never seen that before. I'd never been exposed to war in that way, or young, beautiful young soldiers suffering like that, who didn't think they had a future anymore. And during the course of that week, with the loving embrace of our Seattle Jewish community, like you've done in Joburg and Cape Town, they started to heal each other. They were embedded in these host families, and they started to heal, and they started to heal each other. And from that moment, Brothers for Life was born. And it's literally from the person, the CEO, to those who clean our center, every single staff member is an injured soldier. Every volunteer is an injured soldier. And what we understood was that there's something that they shared even before their injury, this trust that they gave each other of their own lives in each other's hands, this dedication and selflessness and sacrifice for all of us. And they understand what it's like, and I could never understand what this is like, to be very close to death, but to come back, to have a second chance at life. And they call their injury, their day of their injury, they have 2 birthdays, the day they were born and the day they had their injury, and that's called their injuversary, they call it. And to have another chance at life, to have sacrificed for the Jewish people and to have almost lost your life is the greatest sacrifice. And we'll commemorate tomorrow all their brothers who didn't make it back, and they're the best. They'll tell you that they're the best of the Jewish people. So from those 9 soldiers, they started going to the hospitals, and still today, guys, every week they go to the hospitals to meet newly injured soldiers, to do what Gili did. And now we have this incredible infrastructure all over the country, and we have this incredible center we call the Brothers House, the Beit Achim. And I'm not being facetious. You are all invited, because we want people from outside of Israel and the diaspora to be part of this, because you are part of this. And they heal each other. And they start from the hospital bed. They go through going to university, getting them scholarships, helping healing them medically. We have incredible programs for PTSD to take our soldiers from their pain to their redemption, to university, to marriage, to the chuppah, to work, and then giving back to society and giving back to Israel. Because these are IDF fighters, and they're very mission driven. They're very mission driven. I would just say this to you, and then I'll turn this over to Mati. Every soldier in Israel, every person has to serve. But it's a choice whether you serve in combat or not. You don't have to serve in combat if you don't want to. For every combat soldier, there are 4 other non-combat soldiers supporting them. Logistics, everything else. And a soldier who decides to become a combat soldier in Israel knows that they're going to see combat, because we don't have peace yet. And so they know that they're going to put their life on the line for every citizen and for every Jew living across the world. And so I say this to them, and I say it to you. And I say this as an American Jew or a Jew living in the diaspora, this organization is not a charity. It's really not. And our relationship to it, us who are connected to it, it's a debt it's a debt we have to carry with us, and we could never repay that debt because they did something to protect our children. So it's an honor. It's an honor for us to have an organization like this, and I encourage all of you to meet it in South Africa and to meet it in Israel. And I'm going to introduce you to the first of a number of our heroes. And they're not just heroes because they got injured and fought for Israel, but it's because of what happened to them after their injury and how they helped their brothers. So that
Chaim, we will introduce them in a second.
Oh.
One of the questions that has come in is what happens to injured female soldiers? Is there a similar organization for women soldiers?
Great question. So women serving in combat is relatively recent, and there are more and more serving in combat every year. The main unit is actually called Karakal, if you're familiar with it. They did not go into Gaza. And so I want to say this about Brothers for Life, and it's really important. I know the name is Brothers for Life. This is an organization for every combat fighter, male, female, Jewish, Muslim, Druze, Christian. It doesn't matter. We don't yet have any female fighters, injured fighters, because we've only had very few over the past 12 years. They didn't go into Gaza, but we stand ready. And I don't want to say this, there will be, but there will be. And we are here for the Achot L'Chaim. But that's a really important question, and I thank you for asking that question. And these are incredibly brave women, the women who decide to serve in these combat units, these relatively new combat units. Yeah, and we're heroes. And then we have a lot of women who served in the IDF who are part of BFL through marriage, but as terms of being injured soldiers, not yet. So, great question, Howard.
Rabbi Chaim Levine, thank you for your time. Thank you. It seems a little bizarre to say to a rabbi, you're doing God's work, but you truly are. So
well, I'm in Seattle. I'm not doing. I'm just a support. I'm really just to support them. They're doing the work. They really are. I mean, I'm not trying to be false modesty. They're healing each other. We're here to help them.
Amazing. So let's ask Motti to turn on his camera and Motti, welcome. You joining us from the Brothers for Life house?
Yeah, I am. I just want. What was that?
Whereabout is that?
So it's actually located in a place called Kfar Truman, which is about a 5-minute drive from the airport. So now you really have no excuse if you come to Israel to visit us.
One day they'll let us in with our variant. They'll let us in. But Motti, tell us your story.
Okay, it would be my pleasure. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you, Howard, for arranging this and for having me speak, and for Rabbi Chaim for his kind words, and Odd for arranging the video. I'm just very grateful to be here. So the reason, by the way, I have an American accent is because I was born in the States. So I'm an American Israeli. My family made Aliyah when I was 10 years old to a place called Ramat Beit Shemesh. We moved, to a community really, like my family's Orthodox. So drafting isn't something that's so common in our circles. We were very Zionistic, our family's very Zionistic, but drafting to the IDF wasn't something that was really done in my family and extended family, if I'm being honest. But something that was really stuck with me for many years was the stories I heard growing up of my grandfather. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz specifically. And right after he was liberated from the camps, he went to Israel and joined forces to help liberate Israel as well. And he fought in independence. And it was so impactful on me in my life, just hearing these stories of my grandfather, a person who I never met, but yet I was named after him. And I always wanted to live up to something that he did. So when the time came, in Israel at 18, you draft, I went to my parents and I said, guys, I just want to speak to you about the option of me drafting. How do you feel about it? And with a big smile on their face, they said, if this is what you feel is right for you, then this is what you should do. And I remember calling up my friend who was actually one of the people in charge of recruiting people to the IDF at the time. And I said, listen, I just spoke to my parents. They let me go to the army. They support my decision. I don't want to draft in a year, like my draft date said. I don't want to go in 19. I want to go sooner. So he said, let me get back to you and I'll tell you what's available. He calls me back and he told me, we have 2 draft dates, one in 7 months and one in 10 days. So I said, let's do the one in 10 days. So I didn't even have a moment to realize that I'm drafting. 10 days go by. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in an army base, my head's shaven, people are screaming in Hebrew, smoking cigarettes, we're all on uniform. I was just like, what the heck is going on over here? I was just so confused. Honestly, it felt like culture shock. It was just so crazy. And I had this big smile on my face for the whole day. No matter how hard it was, I was just so happy to be there. I said, finally, I get to do something in my grandfather's footsteps. I get to protect Israel. I get to follow what he did and continue on his legacy. And a little bit about training. If anybody told you that training wasn't hell, then he never went through the idea of training. I can tell you that much. The way I would like to sum it up is while you're going through it, you don't see the end and you don't see how you're going to make it. But when you get to the end, you don't understand how you did it. That's what it was for me. But all of it was worth it for that moment where I got to get my beret for the first time. They gave it us, my commander put it on my head in the middle of the ceremony and told me congratulations. And then they punch you on the chest. It's just one of the things that you do in the military. And I felt so blissful. I think that would be the word. I didn't take my beret off the whole day. I went in the car with my family who came for the celebration. My beret was still on my head. I got home, it was still on my head. I couldn't take it off. I was just had so much pride for the journey that I've taken and finally to be able to achieve my dream and my goal to be a combat soldier in the IDF. I drafted to a unit called Netzach Yehuda. So for those of you who aren't familiar with that unit, who aren't familiar, it's infantry in the West Bank that is geared to helping religious soldiers maintain Torah and Halacha according to the Torah guidelines and standards. So they give us everything we need in order to maintain our lifestyle as religious Jews. And the specialty that we did in our unit was infantry in the West Bank, which includes riot patrol, arrests, and a lot of other operations that we did there on the day-to-day basis. About a year and 3 months into my service, a riot broke out. And for us, it was standard procedure, standard protocol. It didn't seem like anything crazy. So we set out to the riot. It was just me, my commander, and another soldier named Noam. And I remember going to this riot feeling like something is wrong, but I couldn't explain it. I felt that something was about to happen. And I turned to Noam and I said, Noam, something's about to happen. And he said, don't worry about it. We're soldiers. We're trained for this. We have each other's backs. And I said, no problem. I got this. In the army, you have a bond with your soldiers like brothers. There's nothing stronger. And we trusted each other. So we went in and we quickly realized that the riot was escalating. Now, for those of you who don't know what a riot looks like, a riot in the West Bank is not like in other places. It's people wearing masks, screaming on top of their lungs, throwing Molotov cocktails, homemade ammunition or bombs and explosives, lighting tires on fire, throwing it at you, and they're really coming for your lives. And it's very scary to be in this situation, especially as a soldier, because you are on the front lines, you are protecting the Jewish people. And I remember we got to the village, we were only 3 soldiers, and there was 100+ rioters, and it was just getting bigger. So we quickly called for backup. And we started checking for terrorist activity. While we were doing this, at the corner of my eye, I see someone approaching me, and my heart dropped. I wasn't sure why. I didn't know where this was coming from, but my intuition was telling me that something's about to happen, and it's about to happen now. I turned around and asked this guy in Arabic. I told him, Jibli alawiya, which means give me your identification card, which he did. And I remember walking about 20 meters, 15 meters back to Noam, asking him if he could cover me so I could check the ID. Tap me on my shoulder to say that he's covering me, he could turn around. And I didn't even have time, honestly, to look at the ID. And I felt something hit me in the helmet. I was sure it was one of the rocks from the rioters or something like that. So I turned around to retaliate to see what was going on. And I remember turning around to seeing Noam on the ground with a man on top of him, the man that I took the ID from, and he was fighting with him. But the man was holding a knife and there was blood everywhere. Excuse the vulgarity of it. And in my mind, I realized Noam was stabbed. That's what went through my mind. I need to save him. And I quickly went for my gun. And this is all happening out of instinct. You don't have time to think. Your body goes into flight or fight mode. I didn't have a choice how I'm going to react. I just had to react, and that's what I did. My body chose to do fight mode, thank God. And I quickly went for my gun, and I just couldn't move my arm. And then suddenly my body went weak, and the adrenaline kicked in, and I started feeling more awake. I started feeling shaky and cold, but pins and needles in my neck. And then suddenly I started feeling wet, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I remember this is all happening in seconds. I look down and I see myself covered in blood. I can't even begin to describe what it was like to see myself that way. And my neck was throbbing. So I took my hand and I quickly went like this, and I covered my neck to see what was going on. And I felt a hole. At that moment, I realized that I was stabbed. I didn't realize the severity of it until later on, when the doctor told me that it was 13 centimeters through my neck. It went from one side all the way to the other, but just didn't pierce the skin, fortunately. And honestly, the only reason I'm alive now is because both me and the terrorists knew that no one comes back from this. Once you're stabbed in the neck, you're done. You're over. I can't even begin to describe the feeling of dying. I was 19 years old. I'm only 25 now. I just turned 25 last week. And to be 19 years old and to know what it's like to say goodbye to this world, death isn't the scary part. Death is the easy part. The scary part was knowing I was 19. You know, in the movies, they make things so poetic and so beautiful and even sexy, the way they make make it sound like, you know, when a person dies, they make like they make it a whole scene and so poetic. But for me, I was like, I didn't even begin anything. I have nothing's going through my head. I have nothing to say for myself except the fact that I'm almost dead. And it was the scariest thing to be in such a state with yourself. It's so real and so scary. And I remember telling myself, there's no way I could die. It's not happening. And I said, whether I die or not, this is all happening in seconds. These are thoughts. And I quickly tell myself that I have to save Noam. No matter what happens to me, I have to save Noam. So I turn around, I snap back into reality, and I scream to my commander, and I tell him, there's a terrorist. He's on Noam, and he stabbed me. And my commander turned around and neutralized the terrorist and shot him. And Noam got up from the ground. Thank God nothing happened to him. The blood I saw on the ground was my own. And he quickly grabbed me, and my commander grabbed me. And I remember looking at them with such fear in my eyes, asking them if I'm going to be okay. In Israel, we don't have bedside manner. We barely have manners, to say the least. And I remember Noam telling me, I don't know if you're going to make it. And I was just thinking to myself, why don't you tell me I'll go be okay? I'm going to be okay. Whether I make it or not is irrelevant. Just tell me I'm going to be fine. That's all I need to hear. And he didn't do that. Which isn't a bad thing. I think it's also what made it more real for me. And in those moments, I lost complete vision. I wasn't able to see out of my eyes. And while they were walking me to the ambulance, I was holding on to them. I went into this state where I started seeing myself. And I was looking down at myself from above. This voice came out of everywhere. And it was in me, it was around me, it was through me. And it goes, your time has come. And I remember telling to this voice, no, it hasn't. I'm not. I could also be Israeli. I'm not. It's not. It hasn't come. And then this voice goes, your time has come. And it says it again. And it's everywhere. It's in my head. It's around me. And it just consuming me. And then I tell this voice again, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not. It's not my time. I can't. I'm too young. And then this voice goes again, I'll give you one more chance. Don't waste it. And then I was able to see out of my eyes again. And immediately I was taken to the hospital into recovery. My recovery was really in the hospital for a weekend. I got in Friday, I got out Sunday. And if I'm being honest with you, you know, when you read in the newspaper that a soldier was injured, you say, you know what, at least he survived. In many cases, that's not how we feel. In my case, that's not how I felt. I was in so much pain. And I'm not talking about physical pain. Physical pain is something I could deal with. I know what it's like to go through physical pain. But I was in such a place where I felt alone. I had no one to turn to, no one who understood me. I was depressed. I was angry. And I had no idea how to identify these emotions. And I was just throwing it at everyone around me. I was a burden to be around. No one wanted to be next to me. And I felt nasty with myself. And it was such a bad reality I was living in. And I remember that I got to a point, because of a few incidents I've been through in my life, where I lost a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, which sent me into a deeper hole, where I got to a state of numbness with myself, where I just wasn't able to feel. I got so numb and in so much pain that I lost all emotion. And it was so scary to be in such a place. And I heard about Brothers for Life from a friend who was also injured. And he said, you have to reach out to them, get the help you need. And I remember saying, I'm not an injured soldier. Give it to the people who lost their limbs. I didn't lose my limbs. And he said, you need them. So I called one of the soldiers. His name is Maor. He's in charge of accepting us at Brothers for Life. And I told him I need to meet with him. I would like to come and join. And I come to the center, which I'm in now. And I told him, Maor, Amati, nice to meet you. And he goes, welcome to the family. It's so great that you're here. We're so happy that you came and reached out to us. And in my mind, I thought maybe this is a gimmick. Maybe it's fake. Maybe I didn't know what to think. It was so overwhelming to finally see these people. I was like, what's the catch? What's the catch? I kept on asking myself, and they kept on telling me there's no catch. We're just here for one another. So I went home, and I was still a little skeptical about Brothers for Life. I was like, okay, what do they do? Where's the catch over here? And I got to a place where I just needed the help. And I said, now's the time to do. I know the catch. I don't know the catch. It's time to reach out again. I came to the Brothers for Life Center, and Maor was there in the living room. And he turned to me after not seeing me for a few weeks. This man sees hundreds of people like me, injured soldiers who come in and out, who he introduces to us. And he goes, hey, Mati, how are you? The moment he used my name, the moment he said my name, is when I got all the belief I needed in Brothers for Life. For someone to go through hundreds of people like me in a span of a few weeks and to still look at me and remember my name showed me that this is about brotherhood. It's about family. It's about connection. It's about helping, and it's about healing. I don't forget my family members' names. Doesn't matter how long I didn't see them. But I could forget someone who I just met a few weeks ago. And Maor proved to me that I'm a family member, that I'm one of his brothers, because he just met me. He only met me once, and he called me by my name. And that was the one thing I needed in order to be able to fully allow myself to get the healing I need at Brothers for Life. When I spoke to Maor, they quickly enrolled me in the PTSD mentorship program, which is a program we have to help people who suffer from PTSD, such as myself. And honestly, the program changed my life. As we mentioned in the beginning of the call, I just got married a little over 3 months ago to the love of my life, and the love of my life forever. And honestly, I say this wholeheartedly, there's no way I would be able to get here if it wasn't for Brothers for Life. If you saw me in the street now, you wouldn't know that there was a story behind who I am. I look like this regular guy who's walking and doing his thing. But the truth is that it's all the work that Brothers for Life put into me for many years, that I was broken and not able to function. I was at a point where I couldn't leave my house. And now I'm at a point where I'm on the staff at Brothers for Life, helping other soldiers who are exactly where I was. And that's all because of what they did for me. And I'm so grateful to, I'm just going to say it over here. Chaim is on the call. Chaim is one of the founders. And I'm thankful for Chaim for being one of the founders of Brothers for Life. And to Ohad and Yaron for also being a part of the family, because without them, I couldn't be where I am today. So I just want to take this for a second and bring this to Yom Hazikaron and what that means for me. I think that as an injured soldier, it may be a little bit different than for other people, or the same, I'm not sure, but I know that it's one of the heaviest days that I have throughout the year. You know, when people, before they perish, before they're killed, there's usually someone around them, someone who's there, someone who sees them. And many of us at Brothers for Life were those faces. We were the faces that were last seen before other people, before our brothers and sisters were killed. And we carry that with us. It's a part of us and it lives within us. I was sitting with my wife yesterday, and we're discussing. She said, "I know she knows about my injury and everything." So she asked me, from my point of view, what does Yom Hazikaron mean? And I told her, it's a day where I do a check-in. She asked, what does that mean? I told her, it's a day where 23,741 soldiers and victims of terrorists were killed since the beginning of Israel, since the creation of Israel, since the creation of this land. That's one person every day for 65 years. That's one person an hour for 2 years and 7 months. It's a crazy number. Yom HaZikaron is every day. It's not just tomorrow. It's not just Yom HaZikaron. But for those of us who don't have to live with that burden, not even a burden, with that reality on our shoulders, it's a day where we're able to tap into those who are no longer with us. Those of us who could have been the new prime minister of Israel, the new politician, the high-tech startup, the teacher, the husband, the spouse, the brother, the friend, the person that we needed in order to get through another beautiful day on this earth. That's who we lost. We didn't just lose a number. We lost our friends, our family. We're a family. And the only way we can let them move on and continue living with us is by doing a check-in. Because if I take what we lost and I add it and implement it into my life, and I take that lack of potential and I instill it into myself and those around me, then they continue living on. They continue being with us. They're here with us, maybe not in person, but at least in memory. And that memory is more powerful than sometimes even in person. And that's what Yom HaZikaron is about. It's about allowing ourselves to think about what we've lost and how we could give meaning to it and how we could give it purpose so those people didn't die in vain. They weren't killed in vain. And that's what Yom HaZikaron is all about to me.
Moti, that is the most remarkable story. Tell us physically, how do you spend Yom HaZikaron? Do you go to a grave site? Do you just spend it with your family? How is that day spent?
So every year is different. It's like I mentioned before, it's a very hard day for me. It's one of those days where I'm more introverted than extroverted, and the cemeteries are filled up with the families of those who they lost. So going to the cemetery for me is a little hard, especially because I've also lost people, and to see their families, especially in a day like this, could be very intense. So it's a day where I usually spend staying at home with the loved ones around me and just really appreciating what I have, as well as allowing myself to realize what I'm going to use and take upon myself for the year to come. In the Yahadut, in Judaism, we have something called Aliyat HaNeshama. It's elevating the soul. So I try to use this day to allow myself and to learn how I can elevate the souls of those who we've lost.
So Moti, just to tell everyone, if they want to ask you or anyone else on the panel any questions, it's a Q&A button that you'll find on Zoom. Also, there's the chat section on Facebook and YouTube. Please use it. We'll pass on any questions. Moti, interestingly enough, there are a number of soldiers from various different elements busy watching us tonight, and they've got questions for you. And Ethel Phillips, who was a UN peacekeeper, actually is quite curious. What did he physically attack you with? Was it a knife, a bayonet? What were you physically attacked with?
I was stabbed with a knife about this big. I'm not really sure the measurements, but it looked like a butcher knife.
And Zizi, who is an Umkhonto weSizwe soldier now, Umkhonto weSizwe was the military wing of the African National Congress, which is now our ruling party. Prior to 1994, they were in exile and led the armed struggle against the apartheid regime. And he says that although he was trained in Angola, Zambia, Cuba, Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, coming back to South Africa, he hasn't been looked after. There's been almost a forgetting of the soldiers and those people who fought for the liberation of South Africa. How are you treated within Israel? Are you looked after by the state? Is there respect and an admiration, and is there looking after and a physical and monetary looking after that the state continues to give you?
So regarding the state and the politics of everything, I think it's very individual towards every soldier and their needs and their injury. I do think that there is a gap when it comes to psychological injuries such as PTSD that I had to deal with, but it's not coming from a place where they don't want to help. It's coming from a place where, you know, everybody in Israel has been to the military. Everybody has some scar, one or another. And to keep up with that, you need more manpower. So I'm assuming, and I'd like to give it the benefit of the doubt, that that's what they're lacking. Regarding how I deal with it and the way I'm looked after, if I'm being honest, it's brothers for life. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about what they could give me, what they can't give me. I'm not here to sit down and say what I could do, in a sense, how can I get more from the country or not? And the benefit that I have over here in Israel is that Brothers for Life was created for people exactly like me who are injured in combat and who need help. And they're there to help in the places where the government is lacking. So I don't feel lost or confused and not sure where to go, because I do know that I have my brotherhood, and any question or anything I need, I really do get that over here. So and I got that at a relatively early age prior in relevance to my injury, in a sense where about a year after my injury, I was already here. Most people takes a while until they get here. So for me, I really just know Brothers for Life as that hug that I need to help me through my injury.
So, Morty, Barbara Wolf, who's busy watching us this evening, put in a message that, in fact, the Brothers for Life house was built by Eric and Sheila Sampson, the late Eric Sampson, who recently passed away. So a very strong South African connection to the organization as well.
Yeah, I'm jumping in just to say something. I'm sorry. I neglected to say that Cape Town in South Africa will forever be connected to our brothers through the Sampsons. Seriously, and it was the idea of a center for our soldiers came from Steve Cohen, who's a member of the family, and it was actually born on a flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town. And they made it a reality. So I'm signing off. I just wanted to say that's a connection we're incredibly proud to be part of.
Thanks. If you have any messages for Chaim or for Morty, please feel free to use the chat section as well on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Morty, we're going to take a 2-minute break and just watch a very quick video, and then we're going to come back and listen to some more stories.
של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, עלו לכל שירייך אני עד אותו לילה הכל היה
ואיך שבאת לי שוב החזרת את האומץ להניע כנפיים,
ואיך שבאת אותי משכת לסלול את הדרך לבחור בחיים,
ואיך שאת לי שוב הזכרת כי את הפחד מנצחים בשיניים, וכשהופעת אותי הרמת לעוף איתך גבוה לשמיים. איך שבאת לב רעב ואת פשוט חייב כמו רוח שערה חדה אל תוך ליבי עכשיו, ואיך שבאת כבר לא לבד, גם בשקט מדברים בעיניים, ואיך שבאת תקווה נתת לעצור את הזמן לדקה או שתיים, ואיך שבאת אותי נסעת למקום אחר על גבך וכנפיים, עכשיו חזק בכל עצה מותר לחלום לא לחיות בשוליים, איך שבאת הכל לבט, השממה הפרחת, במדבר הצמא למתק המים.
Yaron, welcome. I think one of the things that we learned from listening to Moti was sometimes in life is actually a choice.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, thank you, Howard, for giving me this opportunity to speak into this amazing audience. I'm really, really excited. I think I'm the only one here that English is not his first language, but I hope that you will enjoy my brilliant British accent, but my English is very bad, so I will try to do my best. So I don't know how many people that know me here, they know that 1 year ago, I retired from the Army after 24 years of service as a Lieutenant Colonel. In the last 24 years, I was in an active duty, very hard service, very special, not usual. Time after time, I found myself face to face with the death, with a terrorist. And although that I injured 3 times during my service, first time in Lebanon, second time it was in Gaza, and third time it was in the Jordan Valley, nothing actually changed my entire life and my entire perspective about life, like the special meetings that I had with some special guy, special man, that this is the only way that my entire perspective could change after meeting him, and I will talk about it later. So I can say that if I take all of the last 24 years that I was serving in the Army, I can divide my service to 2 parts. The first one, I would say that in Hebrew, and I explain it, I was Hanose, and the second I was Noseh. Noseh, when we pronounce it in Hebrew, Noseh is the subject, but there is another meaning to the word Noseh, is to be a carrier. So I can say that in the first part of my service in the IDF, I thought that I am the subject. It's all about me. But my third injury and the meeting that I had with the guys that I will tell you about changed the perspective to be not the subject, but to be the carrier, to be Noseh and not the Hanose. So I was participating, and I started my service in 1996 as a soldier in Sayeret Golani. It's it's a very, very good unit. And for the first year of my service, I was in Lebanon, and I faced with a lot of terror in Lebanon and then in Gaza. And time after time, fight after fight, I win. And every time I win, I was sure that I'm very good. I can defy every challenge. Nothing can beat me. And I got medal after medal. My commander all the time support me and all the time say how much I'm good. And by the time I was sure that nothing can beat me. Nothing can hit me. I can win every battle. And then in 2002, when I was a company commander is actually commanding on 120 soldiers. I was practicing with my soldier in the north area of the Samaria, next to the Jordan Valley. And then we heard in the radio, the army radio, that there is a terrorist that shoot on an Israeli village, in an Israeli settlement in the Jordan Valley. So I took my soldier and I told them, okay, let's go to this village. Let's try to find this terrorist. And as usual, we will kill him, finish it before dinner, and go back to practice. So I took my soldier, drive to this village. And when I got to this village, I heard from the soldiers that already been in it, they told me, listen, there is a terrorist out of this village, they're shooting into the village. And I said, okay, no problem. I felt that some of my soldiers in my car a bit scared, and I told them, what's going on with you? It is only one terrorist. Let's just finish the mission. Let's take him off and go back to the base. And I got into the village. We leave the car. We line on the ground, and I told them, listen, we're gonna shoot out of the village. We will wait until he will shoot us back. We will find where he is. It was at night. It was dark outside. We will see where he is, and we'll find him and kill him. So I count back from 3 to 1, and I told them, okay, fire. We shot out of the village, and then in the first moments that we shot out, someone shot us from behind. My driver shot in his back. I shot in my foot. I didn't even understand. I didn't even felt I shot in my foot. One of my soldier was actually freeze. It was the first time that he was faced with a terror. And I looked back and I didn't understand why someone is shooting me from the village. The terrorist should be outside of the village. Maybe this is a friendly fire. Maybe this is one of the soldiers. I didn't saw no one. And I tried to walk and to check who is this, but I felt time after time. And then I take a look at my foot and I saw that all of my shoes is just open like that. And I understand that I shot, but I didn't really understand what's happening. So I tried to walk and to crawl, and in one moment I heard scream, and the terrorist actually infiltrated into a Jewish house, and he found in this house a mother and her daughter sitting in a wheelchair, 9 years old, and he shot them both. And when I got there was other soldiers that come to find this terrorist. And I was in the front of the door. They come from the window, and we shoot him. So the helicopter took me to the hospital, and this woman and her daughter were still alive. But and then we got to I get to the hospital. I get into they asked me I needed to get into surgery. And when I wake up, I saw my father look at me, and my first question was, what about the mother and the daughter? And he told me, unfortunately, they died. And I took it very, very, very hard. I felt responsible for what happened. I felt that I failed in the mission. And I needed to start my recovery. So 2 weeks later, they asked me to go back to this village to try and to learn about what happened. The commanders come and say, okay, let's try to walk again about the trail and to understand where he was and where you were. And it was the same hour, because we wanted to learn how it's happened in the darkness. And then the father of this daughter, the husband of this woman, came and he just stand in front of me, and he told me, it's your fault. It's your fault. You didn't come in time. If you're just coming in time, you're still alive. You didn't make your mission. And for me, it was very, very hard. And 1 hour later, I talked to my commander, listen, I know I'm still in recovery. It will take me like 2 months, this recovery, but I don't want to go back to the army. I don't want to stay a commander in the army. I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not skilled enough to be the commander. Look what happened. It's all on me. Leave me alone. I want to leave the army. And he tried to convince me that it's not my fault, is that I tried to do my best, but nothing can convince me to go back. Then he told me, listen, you know what? In one month, there is a delegation that going to Poland, army delegation, to learn about the Holocaust. So go with them and take their time and think about it. Right now, your deputy will take care about the company. Take their time and try to think. I want you to come back to be the commander of this company when you recover. So 1 month later, I was on an airplane, army airplane, doing my way to Poland. And for 1 week, we moved from one camp, extermination camp, to another, learning about the Holocaust. And of course, it was very, very hard. But after, when the week was ended, the commander of this delegation told us, listen, we're going to change something about the schedule. We're going to take one more flight to Italy to learn about the British, the Jewish battalion that took part under the British Army in World War II against the Nazis. So we're going to take the flight to Italy, to the north of Italy, land in Ravenna, and we go to a special river and to learn about this battle, about the Jewish brigade. And we said, okay, why not? For some of us, it was the first time in Italy. Some of us just thought about pizza and pasta, not about this battle. Just take a rest from Poland and for the horrible thing that we saw there. So we landed in Italy and we walked as a group in a small town, walked into this river, needed to cross the town. The name of the town is Fina Faggiana, something like that. And we were wearing a uniform. We were a uniform, IDF uniform, with the IDF flag, and of course the rank and everything. And as we were walking, an old man walked next to us, stunned to see a soldier, a Jewish soldier, in a broken English, almost same like mine. He asked, "Are you a Jewish soldier?" And we said, "Yes, we are." No, I want to understand. You're an Israelis? You came from Israel? We say, "Yes, we are." So he started to kiss the flags on our uniform and to kiss our uniform one after one. We were like 15 soldiers. And then he sat on the ground and he started to cry. And 1 minute he stood up and then he turned and became anger. And he started to shout, "Why we came just now? Why you didn't come in time? If you're just coming in time, my entire family was still alive. I was raised in Poland, my family were in Poland, and I escaped and I was fighting against the Nazis, but all of my family, entire family, died in the Holocaust. Why you didn't come in time?" Well, what can we say? What can we say? There was no IDF those days. Israel wasn't established yet. So we went back to Israel and I decided to go back to the army. 10 months later, I'm with my company again, training, exercise again in another place in the Jordan Valley. And then again, in the army radio, they're telling me, listen, there is a terrorist like doing his way to another village, not so far away from the village where I injured. 4 a.m. in the morning, I took my soldiers again on the vehicle, doing my way to another village. And you can just imagine what's going on in my head after I was injured almost 1 year ago. And I thought to myself, it's not going to happen again. He's not going to shoot me first. I'm going to be there first. So I get to the village. We found this trail, and you start to go after him, and he started to pursue after this terrorist. And I could hear from the speakers of the village, of these settlements, that they're asking all of the Jewish people who are living there, stay at home, lock yourself, don't go out. There is a terrorist around. He's maybe in the village, lock yourself. And I just couldn't imagine what's going on there. Everybody very scared. Everybody just locked themselves in the houses. And I was walking in a very high bushes. In one moment, I found myself face to face with this terrorist. He was waiting to me in the bushes, and I shot him first. And thanks God he died. And no one of my soldiers injured. So I took my soldier back, and when we got into the village, and I just wanted to look that all of my soldiers are okay, we didn't lost anything, and to count my soldier. And it was almost like 6:37 a.m. in the morning. I was talking to my soldiers, they're all standing in front of me. And as I was talking with them, I felt someone touching in my shoulder. So I looked back and I saw a young woman holding a baby with a bag with candies to the soldier. And she told me, "Are you the commander of this soldier?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Thank you. You came just in time." And when she said these words, I felt like slapped me. I remember the old man that asked us, "Why you didn't come in time?" And to myself, when she told me, "Thank you, you came just in time," I said to myself, "Of course we came in time, because now we have a Jewish army, to the Jewish people. We have the IDF. We will always be there in time. Maybe there will be a terror attack sometimes, but there will be no Holocaust anymore. There will be no riots, not in Russia, not in Poland, not in Africa, nowhere, because now we have the IDF. We will always be there in time. We will be in Uganda where they will kidnap our citizen. We will be in Ethiopia when the Jewish people there, we needed us to evacuate them. We will be everywhere they need us, in Iran, wherever we need, because now we took responsibility on our nation, on our people, not only in Israel, all over the world. So now, even that I retired from the army, me and all of my friends in the BFL, yeah, we are trying to be there just in time in the education with youth, to speak with them, to help every citizen in Israel. We can just help him, even without being in the army, even after retiring. We try to be in time wherever the Jewish people need us. The same like you are with us in time with the BFL when we need you and we need your support. And we feel all the time that all of you with us just in time. Thank you.
Wow, Yaron, that's quite a story. You tell us now you're working at the city of David. Tell us, it is the original home of the Jewish people in Israel. It is the city that was, in fact, the city of Solomon, the city of David, the city of all of our original ancestors when they returned from Egypt. Give us a 1-minute view of the city of David.
So the real Jerusalem is in the city of David, out of the walls. When you come in usually to Jerusalem, you're going to pray next to the wall. Out of the walls that surrounded Jerusalem, there is a city of David. This is the real city of David that established 3,000 years ago by King David. He actually conquered this place, and the first kingdom, the first prime minister, you can say, of Israel was there in the city of David. So, a couple of months ago, one of the Minister of Defense of the United States come to Israel, and he didn't went to Yad Vashem. He came to the city of David first. Why? Because when you come to Yad Vashem first, so you usually think that maybe the reason why we need Israel and we live in Israel is just because of the Holocaust. No, that's not the reason. Our reason of living in Israel, starting in the city of David, in the first kingdom, in the first place when we have a king, in the first place when we have a ministers, in the first place where we have a Jewish people in the temple, and this is the place that we have a lot of archaeology there. Day after day, we found the coins of all of the kings that was living in the city of David. We have 1 million people that coming to visit in the city of David every year, except of the COVID year. But now they're coming back again. And there is a lot of people that are living right now in the city of, coming back to live in the city of David, same that was 3,000 years ago.
Amazing. Rabbi Chaim, if I can ask you to turn on your camera, because otherwise I'm going to give halachic advice here. But I want to quote from Devarim, from Deuteronomy. And you can tell me if my quotation is right, but it was a quote that I felt I had to do when Yaron was talking, when it says, "Today I've given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on the heaven and the earth to witness the choice you make, that you should choose life so that your descendants might live."
Wow. That just came to you, Howard?
Yeah, okay. Occasionally the mind still works.
I want to tell you something amazing. That verse, we went to the brothers and said, what do you want to put on outside the gates of our center? And they chose that verse, the verse you just quoted. Uvacharta b'chaim, and you shall choose life. So when you come to the center, Howard, you'll see it's very, we say, Baruch shekavanta, blessed is he who has the kavanah, because that you literally chose the words that are outside the gates of our center. Thank you.
Amazing. So gentlemen, thank you. We're going to speak to Achad now and to hear his remarkable stories. If you have any questions for Yaron or anyone else on the panel, please feel free to put them into the Q&A section on Zoom or on Facebook, on YouTube. I see a number of people have told us that they've been to the Brothers for Life house, not far from the airport in Israel. And I'm sure, Yaron, you would welcome people both at the City of David and at Brothers for Life.
Of course, you're welcome.
Great. So, Ochad, let us get your video started and let's get you unmuted. Welcome. Lovely to see you this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Another one with a remarkably fluent English accent. Tell us where you're from.
Well, I was born here in Israel in a small village down south called Bitzaron.
And your slight American twang to the accent?
Well, when I was 5, my dad had to move to Tallahassee, Florida for a couple of years for his work. So I spent a couple of years growing up in Florida, and I came back to Israel when I was about 6.5, 7 years old.
So tell us your story.
Well, you know, growing up in a small village in Israel, I remember my parents. One of my first memories actually is my parents teaching me how to ride the bike on a small dirt road, and I just kept falling over and over again. And each time my dad, my mom, they came to me and they picked me up smiling and they said, "Well, good job. Let's do it again." And you know, after high school in Israel, we all have to go to the army, men and women. We don't have the privilege in going to the university or college right after high school. And all my friends from home that I grew up with decided that they're going to become combat soldiers, that they're going to join the best and elite units in the IDF. And for me, I wasn't so sure. My oldest brother passed away from cancer when he was 5. And obviously my parents, they didn't want to lose another son. And there were tough decisions to make. Eventually, I went to combat. I went to the Air Force, actually. This is me at the age of 18, just joining the army. I was in a unit called the Anti-Aircraft Warfare Unit. And about 10 months after I joined the army, my unit was called to an area south of Hebron to guard an area that had Jewish and Arab villages next to each other. And during a patrol one night, a regular, standard normal night, nothing out of the ordinary, me and another 3 soldiers were in a Jeep patrolling the area, and we were caught in an ambush with 3 terrorists. And at the time, we didn't know that there were 3 terrorists. We heard shooting. We saw that our vehicle is being hit. I immediately felt a very sharp pain in my stomach. And as I kicked the door open and I jumped out, I saw the muzzle flashes from their rifles. And me and Tomer, we just shot every single bullet that we had on us towards those flashes. And once the shooting stopped, we noticed that our commander was laying in a pool of his own blood. And we pulled him back behind the Jeep in order to provide him some coverage. Our driver was completely shell-shocked. He was on the ground screaming. His rifle was on the ground next to him. And once the shooting started again, we took the magazines from our commander's vest, and we continued on shooting for a while until they stopped again. At that point, I took my tourniquet from my left pocket in order to tend the wound of Yuri, my commander, and that's when I noticed that he was hit in his shoulder. And you can't put a tourniquet on the shoulder. So what I did was I tried to stick my knuckle in his wound in order to stop the bleeding. Unfortunately, Yuri was hit in his main artery in the shoulder, and he was losing a lot of blood. He was unconscious. He wasn't responding to anything. We tried to call for help on the radio, but the radio, like the entire vehicle, everything was completely destroyed from the shooting. So we tried to take out our cell phones and call for help. Eventually, we reached the battalion back in the barracks. We told them our situation. We didn't know exactly how much time it will take them to get to us. And basically, we were sitting ducks. We shot everything that we had. And at that point in time, we noticed a vehicle driving towards us from an Arab village that was right next to us. And we jumped towards that vehicle. There was a single male Arab driver in the front seat. We pulled him back out of his own car and put him in his back seat. And all 4 of us got into his vehicle, and we started to drive in order to get to the hospital as soon as possible, because Yuri was bleeding to death. And we didn't know for sure how much time he has left to live. And after a couple of minutes of driving, we noticed the entire cavalry driving towards us, and my whole upper body was outside of the window, like waving towards them so they would recognize me, right? Because they saw a civilian vehicle driving away from a point where ambush just took place. It was very normal for them to open fire towards us. But we were very fortunate that they noticed us, they recognized me, and they stopped their vehicles. That's when I saw the doctors and the paramedics rushing towards us, and I just collapsed on the ground. I told them that my stomach was on fire, that I think I'm injured from shrapnels. They took me and Yuri into the ambulance, and they rushed me towards the hospital. And this is actually me on the left, arriving to the hospital that night. What you can see on the right is 2 entry wounds from AK-47 bullets. One came out from the middle of my stomach and went up and opened my entire chest. They didn't know where the other bullet is at, so they rushed me to do an X-ray. They saw that the bullet was somewhere on the right side of my pelvis. So the doctor gave me his phone, and he said, "You should call your mother before we take you into the operating room. It's better that she hears you than she hears me." And so I called my mom. And again, this was a standard Thursday night. She was at home with my dad watching TV. And I spoke to her like an hour before that, telling her that we're just in a standard patrol. Everything is quiet. I called my mom and I told her, "Mom, I'm at the hospital in Beersheba. I'm shot. So take Dad and come to the hospital." And my mom, she starts cursing me. she starts screaming at me. You idiot, this is not funny. You don't joke about these things. You and your poor sense of humor. Eventually, I gave the doctor his phone back, and he explained to her the situation. Obviously, he was much more convincing than me. I woke up the next morning at the hospital. My family and my friends were there waiting for me to wake up. I remember the first thing that I saw when I opened my eyes, that my hands were still covered with Yuri's blood. And when I woke up, they told me, Yuri's alive. He was severely injured by an M16 bullet in his main artery, but you saved his life that night. You and Tomer, you saved his life. And there were actually 3 terrorists waiting for us from about 14 meters away. They had the perfect hiding place. They were waiting for us. They knew that the patrol would reach that junction at some point during that night. And we were there under a street light, and only God knows how all 4 of us soldiers came out of that alive. And like I said, 1 bullet came out of my chest, and the other bullet is still inside until this day. A souvenir from the military service on the right side of my pelvis. I went back home after 4 days, with some sort of a miracle. Not one organ was injured. The bullets missed everything by that much. And I went back home and I started rehabilitation. And I wanted to go back to my unit. And after about 2.5 months of rehabilitation, I came back. And I finished advanced training with my teammates, and I went on to commander's training. And I served for another 2.5 years in my unit as a commander. And it felt like everything was fine. And then the Second Lebanon War started, and my unit was sent up north to guard the northern border. And that's when I started feeling anxiety. This is actually a picture of me during that war, where I started feeling these flashbacks and nightmares. I was feeling very anxious. There were a lot of sirens. There were missiles coming from everywhere, hitting us all around. And at that moment, I started to realize that something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And I just continued on fighting until the war was over. And not long afterwards, I finished my military service. Then I went on working in the United States for a while. I had to get out of Israel just to clean my head, but I couldn't leave my mind here in Israel. I had to take it with me. And the flashbacks and the nightmares, they just got worse until I realized that I have to go back and treat myself. Afterwards, I went with Tomer and a bunch of friends to India, tried to clear my head. Then another war started in Gaza. And while we're sitting on this beautiful beach in India, all we can think about is the casualties and our friends that are going to reserve to fight. And we need to go back. So I came back to Israel and I started to work on what I know now is post-traumatic stress disorder. At that time, nobody explained to me what that was. This sense of alertness all the time, the fact that I have to sit with my face towards the door everywhere I go. I'm walking down the street, I'm picturing the next disaster that's going to happen, and I'm focused all the time, I'm alert all the time. It's exhausting. And if you don't know that feeling, it's very hard to explain how much frustrating it is and how much energy it depletes from you to try to handle that situation. And during that time, I actually met a beautiful girl. Her name is Gili. Gili is actually South African. Her family is from Middelburg, and part of her family is from Johannesburg. And if there are any members of the Brosen family listening, or if you know any members of the Brosen family, please give them a big hug from me.
I'm actually having breakfast with John T. Brosen tomorrow morning.
Well, give them a big hug from Ohad. So Gili really helped me to put my life back on track. Not long after we met each other, we moved into a small house, and we got married, and I found myself in this very healthy place with 3 chocolate Labradors and 2 white rabbits. I bought my first car and I started studying psychology in college. We went on our honeymoon to Africa for a safari in Kenya, and we always talked about going to Johannesburg. I was actually supposed to go on a delegation last year to Johannesburg with Brothers for Life, but it got canceled due to COVID. So hopefully next year I'll be able to do that. About 8 months after Gili and I got married, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And we had to eventually stop our schools and our jobs, and to focus on her chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Unfortunately, Gili's cancer was a very rare type of cancer and a very aggressive one. And exactly 1 year after Gili was diagnosed, she passed away. Sorry. She passed away in Passover 2013. Actually, next week we're gonna go to her grave. It's gonna be 8 years since she passed away. And you know, in Jewish tradition, we sit and we mourn together for 7 days, but afterwards everyone has to go back to their life. That's just the reality. We all have our responsibilities, but I didn't have much of a life to go back to because I wasn't working and I wasn't studying, and 24/7 we were around the treatments and trying to make her feel better, being around friends, being around family. You know, her last 10 days, we were in a hospice, so everyone could come and say their goodbyes. And at that point, probably the lowest point of my life, I went to the house of Brothers for Life. I knew about Brothers for Life before that. I just imagined a place with a bunch of handicapped soldiers, disabled soldiers, just sitting and feeling sorry for themselves, you know, giving each other legitimacy not to move on with their own life. Our society in a whole is a very macho society, and if you're a combat soldier, then it's even bigger than that, and you feel that you can do anything on your own. You don't need anyone's help. But that transformation, and I'm talking about the transformation of being injured, of being a combat soldier, a commander at one point in the field with your soldiers, and then a couple of hours later you're in a hospital bed and you can't even go to take a shower or go to the bathroom without assistance, is maybe the worst transformation someone can go through. You feel like an infant again. You can't do anything on your own. And when I came into the Brothers for Life house, I sat down with one of the brothers, and he took both of his legs off and put them on the table right in front of me. And he said, "Hi, I'm Guy. Nice to meet you. I'm in charge of taking in the new brothers." And this was actually the first time that I ever sat with another injured combat soldier. The only injured combat soldiers that I knew before that was Yuri, my commander, but after his injury, he just disappeared. He left the army, and we didn't know where he was or what he was doing. So this was actually my first time having a conversation with an injured combat soldier, and we sat for about an hour and a half talking, and I felt like this guy is a complete stranger, but he understands me like nobody understands me. And I have friends that I know since birth, and I'm blessed with an amazing family, but nobody could really understand what I was going through until I sat down with him. And I thought, this is a really, really special person. But then I went to sit outside with a couple of other strangers, and it was the same thing. Sometimes I didn't even have to talk. It was just something in the eyes that we knew that we understand each other. So I started to come in to the Brothers for Life house more and more, and I felt this sense of relief, you know, like I can take that Superman cape off my shoulders and hang it on the entrance of the house and walk in, take off all my masks and just be myself. Nobody's judging me, or even better than that, nobody's feeling sorry for me. I don't have to explain myself. And when I talk about nightmares or flashbacks, or even the fact that until this day, I have a nightlight next to my bed because I'm so terrified of the dark. It's something that people can understand, people can relate. And they said, well, we know we're going through the same thing. And I want to show you this picture. I found myself in the wilderness one night with 40 injured combat soldiers, and we sat around that campfire the entire night. Every single one of those 40 injured soldiers shared their personal stories about their injury, about their dreams, about their recovery. I don't even know how many hours we sat there, but nobody stood up, nobody left. And it's one of the most remember nights that I'll take with me for as long as I live. There's something about the camaraderie, the sense of belonging that was missing for me and for a lot of us before we came into the brotherhood. And feel like that you can just be yourself. You don't have to pretend to be anything that you're not. And one of the worst things about PTSD is that it's transparent. Unlike a wheelchair or a prosthetic limb, we don't have PTSD written on our foreheads. You don't know what's going on through our minds. And when you look at it from the outside, it can come off as laziness or just depression, but you don't really know what goes on inside our minds. And coming into Brothers for Life, there's a lot of dark humor, and we can make fun of each other, but that's just one of our coping mechanisms. That's the way that we talk in Brothers for Life, and that's okay, because that's just the way we handle it. But that sense of belonging and love and acceptance is something that I haven't experienced, and I needed that, like I needed air to breathe. And people hug you like they've known you your whole life, even if you actually met them 5 minutes earlier. And so with the help of the medical project, I worked on some issues that were bugging me with my stomach, with my digestion, and with the help of the PTSD program, I started to cope with my grief and my loss, and I started dating again at some point. And then the personal development department helped me to go back to school and finish my studies. And the more I came into the house, the more the better I felt. And there's something really spectacular in Brothers for Life, is the fact that it doesn't matter where you're from. Like Rabbi Chaim said, if you're a Druze, if you're a Bedouin, if you're a Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're secular or if you're religious, doesn't matter who you voted for in the last 4 elections that we had in the last year. It doesn't matter what rank you were in the army. It doesn't matter what unit you served. It doesn't matter for how long you served. It doesn't matter if your injury is a physical injury, an emotional injury, or both. We're all together, 1,000 injured soldiers. And you know, at the beginning, you feel like you're never going to walk through that tunnel, that tunnel that they tell you about. When every soldier that gets injured, we make sure to send 2 soldiers, 2 of our brothers, to the hospital room, and we make sure that the 2 soldiers that visit him in the hospital have the same injury that he has, just to show him that even with his injury, there is a life that you can live with that injury. And maybe where you're positioned right now in the hospital bed, you don't see that light, but we see that light for you, because we've been where you are, and we know that there is a light at the end of that tunnel, and you're not going to walk that tunnel by yourself. There are 1,000 of us who are going to walk that tunnel with you, hand in hand, and we'll take you to that light at the end of that tunnel. Even if you don't see that light, we see that light for you. And you know, when I went on to the delegation in New York, we stay with hosting families in the community at their homes. They open their house to us. They offer us their kids' beds, and they open the refrigerator. They open their hearts and they say, "This is your home for the next 10 days." And when I came into that delegation, I didn't think that the Jewish community outside of Israel really even care for us, for the soldiers of the soldiers of Israel. And I was so wrong. The connection that I have with the hosting families that I stayed with, only today I had a conversation of an hour and a half with Mara, who hosted me in New York at 2014, and she's family. You know, I actually love her more than I love my extended family. And I know my parents are on this call. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. But that's the truth. And when Mara was here with her daughters and her husband, she stayed at my house, and she came to Shabbat at my parents' house. And that's the kind of connection that we have with the Brothers for Life global community. And that global community, it transcends everything. Doesn't matter. I show you this picture of a Holocaust survivor wearing our bracelet that we hosted at our house, as we host Holocaust survivors every year at our house, and a picture of my recent born. But that sense that I could move on with my life. And I want to take you back to me at 19, leaving that ambulance, arriving to the hospital, looking at my injury for the first time, thinking that there is no way that I'm ever going to be able to date the way that I look. There's no way that I'm going to find love the way that I am right now. And so fast forward to today. This is my perfect wife, Tal. And on the left, you can see Omer and Danielle. They're 3-year-old now. And 4 months ago, Jonathan came into the world. And we have 2 chocolate Labradors. No more rabbits, though. We're done with rabbits. That was a mistake to begin with. I apologize to all you rabbit lovers out there. But it's a useless pet, to be honest. This is a very tough week for us. at Brothers for Life heading into Memorial Day. You know, for a lot of us, we are the last faces that our fallen brothers saw in their life. And we have to walk with that memory in our heads for the rest of our lives. And going into Independence Day, so shortly after, it's not easier. Those of you who have PTSD, who suffer from the fireworks during Independence Day or all the firecrackers during Purim know what I'm talking about. It's a very difficult transformation for us. And you can feel it in the house as well. You know, there's a lot of dark humor most of the year, and during this week, everything becomes much more quieter. Everyone becomes much more quiet, introverted, like Moti said. We're more to ourselves than most days. But knowing that we have the house to come to whenever we need, and knowing that we're gonna have the ceremony there, and this year we're gonna have it with many guests, unlike last year due to COVID. I say finish with this. I hope you all join us tomorrow evening for our Memorial Day ceremony. And you know, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram. And I really hope that when all this COVID crap blows by, that you all come to Israel and visit us at our house. It's only 5 minutes from the airport.
Ohad, I'm sure you've told the story hundreds of times, but it seems like it doesn't get easier every time you tell it.
You know, often I start with that phrase exactly. That I've told my story a lot of times. It never gets easier.
We're going to talk about in another minute how people can get involved in the organization, how they can host people from Brothers for Life in their own homes. Mark Kadish, we're going to come to you, but I feel like we almost need a 2-minute breather before we actually go on to that. A deeply moving, uplifting, devastating story. Let's have a 2-minute breather, watch a video, and then we're going to come back, answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A section on Zoom or into the chat section on YouTube or on Facebook. And we'll speak to Dr. Mark Kadish as well as everyone else in about 2 minutes' time.
של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור עלו לכל שירייך אני
These are the protectors of the Jewish people. They've held their brothers in their hands as they've died. We can never know what that's like. Never. These are elevated souls.
So Mark, you've been involved in Brothers for Life in South Africa. You've arranged groups to come here. You've hosted families. How can people get involved?
You know, Howie, it's just before I start, I would just like to, it's always difficult holding back tears when you listen to the Achim stories, and thank you, Ohad, and thank you, Moti, and thank you, Yaron, for sharing your stories with us again. In fact, Moti and Yaron were with us. I think the last delegation that we had in Johannesburg, which was 2019, and Yaron, we please God, we'll be able to host you soon post, as you put it, COVID crap. It's really the most humbling experience being involved with this organization. And I mean, as you've witnessed tonight, a little bit of the sense of what it feels like to be part of this enormous, tremendous family that try and heal those injured combat soldiers. You know, hosting families. In fact, I got involved, or my family got involved a little bit after it started in South Africa. Mark and Bendita Gordon, who were the patrons, the Johannesburg patrons, and I, you know, again, have to credit them in starting what was the Johannesburg chapter, and their abundance of generosity and their commitment to the organization is absolutely phenomenal. We try and get every South African involved in the delegation that comes to the country. I mean, we have the soldiers that go to visit us Jewish day schools. Soldiers go to our shuls. They meet part of the broader communities. They've been interviewed on radio. And in fact, one of the highlights always is meeting the Holocaust survivors. And it's a truly moving experience. Hosting the Achim is limited because of the number of soldiers that do come, and as Rabbi Chaim said, I mean, there are almost 1,100 soldiers in the organization, unfortunately, each with their own story and each with their own heart-wrenching past. And the reality is, the more people who can get involved in the organization, the happier the organization is. But hosting is limited to the number of soldiers that come out each time. So we have between 10 and, I think the most we've had is 13 or 14 soldiers at any particular time, because logistically it becomes quite difficult having more soldiers and more numbers. But we try and put it out there when the Achim L'Chaim visits Johannesburg, and we try and get every community member involved in whichever way they can. I mean, we've had butcheries that have hosted us at our notorious braais that everybody enjoys when they come to South Africa. And you know, the reality is the Brothers for Life organization endear themselves to every walk of life, not only to our Jewish day schools and our Jewish institutions, but to absolute strangers who meet them on safari, to people in the streets who want to know more of their story. And it is the most humbling and beautiful part of what we try and achieve with the Achim in South Africa.
So, Mark, in fact, in the last delegation that came, I spoke at one of their functions, and then on a Saturday night, together with your son Linton, we took them out jolling, and we went to Winter Wonderland in Kramerville, and we all got horribly drunk and had the biggest joy of our lives, and just the sense of normality that brings is just so remarkable.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it's the 1 week a year where I let my hair down a little bit, and I become a child again. But I think it's part of what it's all about. And but the experience that we have with the Achim, you know, they are taken away on safari, which is probably the highlight of their week with us. Although being with the host families, which bring lots of love and lots of care and food, and the actual time away sitting around a bonfire, just sitting in the background and watching the Achim share their story, sometimes for the first time with each other, is part of their healing process, is part of what it means for them to come on a delegation, to leave Israel, and to feel that they are loved by the community at large. I mean, I just want to add something which is I think Rabbi Chaim said, no, it was Ohad who mentioned it earlier, who said, interesting, when they leave school in Israel, every boy and girl is drafted to the army. They're given a uniform and a rifle, and they are told to go out there and defend the state of Israel, not only for the Israelis and the state of Israel, but for all Jews around the world and Jews in the diaspora. Compare that to what happens with our children. I mean, they finish school and they decide whether they want a gap year, which university they want to attend. And again, these achim that belong to this organization have chosen to be part of an elite fighting unit. And they are willing to sacrifice life and limb to protect the state of Israel for all Jews around the world and for democracy around the world. And it is certainly, again, the most humbling experience that and, Rabbi Chaim mentioned life-changing experiences. For my family, this has been an absolute life-changing experience. And I think I can talk on behalf of every single host family and their children. The bonds that are forged between our children and the Achim, the bonds that are formed between us and the Achim. And Karen and I had an absolute privileged visit to the Beit Achim. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago at Yom Hazikaron ceremony, which was absolutely, you could sense that love and that devotion to each other. And again, it's what this organization is all about. They have an absolute commitment not to stop until every single soldier's needs are met. And, I think next time we have a delegation in South Africa, we got to put it out there. We got to get as many community members as we can involved.
So let's actually talk about this. Chaim, people want to get involved. How do they follow you on social media? Moti, how can people get more involved in the organization? How can they help? And while we answer that question, I'm just going to ask everyone who's busy watching on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube, just to leave us a message, because we're going into the last 5 minutes of this broadcast, but we'd love to give you the opportunity just to leave a message for Chad and for Moti and for Chaim and everyone else who's been on the panel this evening. So please, if you could leave us a message as we speak about how you can get more involved. Mark, is it through the international organization or the local chapter?
The local chapter is, we will put it out there after the Zoom meeting, how you could contact us. But I think Ohad or Rabbi Chaim may take over from here and just elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, so there's 4 main ways to get involved. Number 1, and the easiest for everyone, the website is brothersforlife.com. Join our newsletter, see when events are happening, and there will be events happening in Johannesburg, certainly, hopefully in Cape Town one day soon also, but we'll give you advance notice. And like Mark said, there'll be a couple public events. It means so much just to show up with your feet and say thank you. You have no idea what it means to the soldiers. If you're coming to Israel, on the website you'll see there's a way to visit our center, and we would love to welcome you. Those are the first 2 and easiest ways to get involved. On social media, I have no idea what social media is, but I know we have a Facebook page, and Ohad could tell you what that is, and we have a Instagram page and a something else page. We have all those pages, Twitter, maybe not Twitter, whatever it is. We have all those things, and we are active on that. But the first thing to do is to go on the website and familiarize yourself with the organization. Reach out to us through the website. Hey, I want to come to Israel. Hey, I'd love to host if we're coming to South Africa, or to meet the soldiers. That's the easiest and most direct way to get involved with us. And as I said before, we'd love to see you in Israel. Israel is going to be opening soon for tourists. And we actually have some of our soldiers who kind of love to show you what Israel looks like through their eyes, to take you in different areas of Israel and to show you what Israel looks like. It's called the BFL experience. It's kind of our little tour process, which is really amazing. So those are the main ways to get involved. Very simple. But do get involved, because I tell this guys all the time, if we took $100 million and gave it to this organization, but we couldn't have contact with our BFL family in Johannesburg, Cape Town, New York, Seattle, it's not worth 100 million. You're part of the healing. This is a global, international Jewish effort to help our soldiers heal each other. And I could not be more sincere about that. So that's the way to get involved. Ohad, if you want to add any of the social media stuff, that's great. Whatever the handles are, or the Twitter hags, or Tash.
I want to add something important that I forgot to mention, and I don't know if we said that everyone that works in Brothers for Life, we're all injured soldiers. The CEO, the chairman, all the management, all the employees, we're all injured soldiers ourselves. We don't have any psychiatrists or psychologists or social workers. For that, we live the Ministry of Defense. But everyone that works in Brothers for Life is an injured soldier themselves. Now, regarding to social media, we have an account on Instagram and on Facebook. Those are the two best platforms to stay updated with us. We upload stories all the time about new projects and about personal stories like the ones that we shared. So follow us and please stay in touch.
Yeah, follow us on Facebook, you guys. Is it Brothers for Life? Just Brothers for Life? Ohad, is that a special name?
I'll send it in the chat. Hi.
Okay. In English, it's Brothers for Life.
We put it into the chat already.
I don't know how to give. I don't know how to get on. But listen, in English, it's called Brothers for Life. In Hebrew, Achim L'Chaim, just so everyone knows. In Israel, this is known by Achim L'Chaim. It's just simply the translation. And George Kaufman, it's great to see you up here.
Motti,
yeah.
can I ask you? So we're having a communal Yom Hazikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut ceremony Wednesday night, and we're encouraging everyone who's watching us to come to the South African Yom Hazikaron and Lior Sushard celebration for Yom Ha'atzmaut, which we'll do on Wednesday night. But you guys are also having your own Yom Hazikaron ceremony. If people want to participate, we did see a small inkling, but how can people who also want to participate in the Brothers for Life Yom Hazikaron commemoration, how can they do that?
So, excuse me. So regarding the way that you could participate, great question. Thanks for asking. Number one, we're putting out Zoom links all over our social media and our websites. If you email me, I would love to send you a Zoom link as well. Anybody wants to get in touch with me, I could put my email in the chat below to get it out there, and I could send you a personal link in order to view the Zoom the Zoom link for the Yom Hazikaron ceremony. That's all I know on my end.
Monty, can you put it on the right here on the chat, the Zoom link?
I'm gonna go.
We can do that as well.
So
before we get off.
So while you do that, I just want, for those people who would like to participate in the South African communal Yom Hazikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut, we're going to show you a 2-minute ad of Lior Sushard, and we're going to come back and then make sure that we put the Yom Hazikaron details for Brothers for Life on the chat as well. So we'll be back in exactly 1 minute.
Howard.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by one of the most incredible people I have ever met. Please welcome the world's best mentalist, Mr. Lior Sushard. Thank you for being here, Lior. We've not had time.
What was the song you were thinking of?
Rocket Man.
Come on! Can you tell me the song?
You want me to tell you the song?
Tell me the song.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Queen! It's a great song. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Wait, no, listen to me.
Yeah.
You do the 9 and the 8. Guys, your song was Bohemian Rhapsody. Let's see.
Hello everyone, Lior Sushard here, and I want to invite you all to the South African Zionist Federation live special virtual event for Yom Hazikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's going to be on Wednesday the 14th of April at 7 p.m. exactly. I promise you an unforgettable evening, and I look forward to read your mind. Just come with positive thoughts. Book now at www.sazf.org/register, and I will see you soon.
So booking is free. We encourage everyone busy watching this evening to really go register and join us on Wednesday night when we have the South African Yom HaZikaron and Lior Sushard to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut as well. Have we, Moti, have we found where people can register for Tuesday night for Yom HaZikaron?
So I actually just posted it to the chat. So if anybody wants to go and see it, it's on the chat. There's a Zoom link and a YouTube link for anybody who would love to Zoom in. Or
so
YouTube.
Just copy it out, stick it into a Word document. We'll as well stick it onto YouTube as well as onto Facebook, where we're broadcasting as well. So that brings us to the end of tonight. I want to thank Achim L'Chaim for some remarkable, inspiring, and just truly uplifting stories, and they really are. And I want to thank Saul Jasanowski, who was the one who came and said, why don't we actually get Achim L'Chaim? Let's actually do a webinar together with them. And we thought that was an amazing idea just before Yom HaZikaron, that people actually understand, even those far away. You will know when you've been to South Africa, Moti, you know, but when you come to South Africa, the deep commitment that South African Jewry have, and so many Zionist Christians in South Africa have, to the state of Israel, to the Jewish people, to the defense force that protects not only the state of Israel, but all of us in the diaspora and around the world. So I thank you all for joining us this evening. We'll see you again next week with our next webinar. I hope you've been inspired as much by tonight as we have in bringing this to you. So on behalf of the South African Jewish Report, as we said, this is the 87th webinar, and we'll see you at number 88. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
We are the Israel Defense Forces. For 72 years, you've heard our stories. Tiny country, surrounded by enemies, surviving against all odds. You know the names of our wars, our battles, our planes, our tanks, our tech. You think you understand our success?
You know nothing. Let me tell you a secret.
Hold on.
The key to our existence.
Let me call Frankie. Let me call play right back, okay, buddy?
It's our soldiers. Our spirit, our passion, our love.
We are an army of the people. Jews, Druze, Muslims, Christians. We are defending our homes.
We are protecting our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, our neighbors, our friends.
Where there's no road, we pave one. No bridge, we build one. No answer, we find one.
For us, no distance is too far, no ocean too vast, no mission too complicated.
We get the job done.
When our new soldiers are sworn in, they pledge, if necessary, to sacrifice their lives for Israel.
All of us, in blue, in green, in white, in beige, generals and privates, active duty and reserves, we're ready to take any risk to ensure the survival of Israel. It's an honor to have this mission today. We stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us. The men and women who started with nothing and built a powerful army that is feared by its enemies and respected by its peers. We're proud to have given new life to the Jewish people, security to all of Israel's citizens, and confidence that our best days are ahead of us. We are the Israel Defense Forces.
Now you know our secret. Happy Independence Day.